So we were just drinking rainwater that had been in a basin for God knows how long. And we could feel it. These three honestly were like my biggest things when it comes down to healing my gut. You're going to get an amazing detox in addition to replenishing your body, not just your gut, but also your whole body with... Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Selena from Wholeness Campaign. I share gut health, detoxification, and non-toxic living content for those of you who are trying to heal from chronic illness naturally. So in today's video, I'm going to kind of go over how I healed my gut from years and years of antibiotic use, from traveling and getting parasites, and all the things that I would say were key for me in resolving what I have now learned is called gut dysbiosis. So there's a lot of different names out there for what I have had symptoms of. Gut dysbiosis really kind of summarizes it all. So I'm going to go into that, but I'm also going to share my best, like, top 3 fermented things that I eat that I feel like have gone the furthest in healing my gut and resolving several chronic health issues in the rest of my body. So let's jump in. I want to give a little bit of backstory for those of you who don't know my story or maybe new to my channel. I have done quite a bit of traveling over the last 10 years. And that's really where a lot of my story started, because I was in countries that didn't have very good water filtration, and I was also taking rounds and rounds of antibiotics for malaria and things of that nature. When I got out of high school, I went and traveled to New Zealand. At that time, I had been on several rounds of antibiotics. I had had several different chronic infections, Lyme's disease, mono. I was just very immune compromised, if you want to call it that. I would get sick a lot. I had asthma. I had probably like a low grade IBS, but kind of undiagnosed. And obviously different things played into that. But when I was leaving to go to New Zealand, and then we would eventually then go to other countries, I was kind of already in a suppressed state from the lifestyle that I had leading up to that. Once we went to New Zealand, I had to get several kind of different antibiotics to mitigate the risk of malaria, because after I was in New Zealand, I was planning to go to a different country which potentially would expose me to malaria. Long story short, I did get chosen to go to a group of South Pacific islands called Vanuatu, which is near Fiji, if you aren't familiar. And it's really a poor country. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. A lot of the offshore islands that we were staying in didn't have great food supply, and the water was, caught from the rain and not typically filtered. So we went there actually bringing filters to the people and the hosts who were accommodating us, but we found out partway through the trip that the hosts that were cooking for us weren't actually using those filters. So we were just drinking rainwater that had been in a basin for God knows how long. And we could feel it. Everybody kind of had like stomach upset. Come to find out that would be parasites. So in addition to that, I was on, rounds of malaria medication, which if you know anything about antibiotics, it's just going to kill off all of the good bacteria and supposedly the bad. But then I was also being inundated with this high bacterial and parasitic load. So it just led to a really big gut imbalance. And I came home from that trip a little bit in denial, but eventually sought help and got tested and was diagnosed with a parasite after quite a long time of dealing with those digestive issues and repercussions from living in that country. Partway into college, I ended up going abroad again, and I stayed in several different countries around the world, but then we landed in Madagascar, and that I think is where most of my issues kind of came from. We were eating pretty contaminated food and water. I was pretty diligent about my water source at this point, but I was still taking the malaria medication, and I was, I'm now on it for the second time, and I was eating the food that was cooked in water that is contaminated. Long story short, I started developing pretty severe nausea and vomiting while I was in Madagascar, and they decided to put me on different kinds of antibiotics. So there was a nurse there. She gave me one round. It caused me to vomit more, so she gave me a different type of antibiotic. And then I had a roommate who was a nurse who told me that I was taking the wrong one and that I needed to take yet another antibiotic. So within the span of 3 weeks, I was on 3 different rounds of antibiotics plus the malaria medication that I was already on. It was a disaster. I was vomiting but not going to the bathroom, and by the time I was on the plane home, I was on a 12-hour plane home, nauseous the whole way, and I was, I think at that point, 10 days constipated. So it was a disaster. My stomach was in complete disarray, and you don't need to know all those details, but I gave them to you. So when I got home, I went to a clinic and he basically said to me, have you tried taking a probiotic? And I, at the time, didn't really know what a probiotic would do. I didn't realize like the importance of it. I've heard about them. I probably knew I should have been taking one, but I didn't know enough to know why. So he said, why don't you go to the store and get some yogurt or kombucha? And this is just like a regular Minute Clinic guy. So it didn't really take very much knowledge to kind of understand that I was very depleted. And so we got some kombucha. Needless to say, it resolved the issue, but it kind of sent me on this rabbit trail of learning about the gut microbiome, because I realized then later I had several repercussions from all of this, and my stomach was really not ever fully back to normal until I started healing it. So going into college, I then developed other issues that I will talk about in other videos, but I really did start digging into this idea of gut health. I felt like I was shown some answers through some friends, and I realized that I had a really bad case of gut dysbiosis. I had been diagnosed with then IBS at that point, but what I learned is that IBS is just a symptom. It's actually not a technical diagnosis of what's actually going on, and many people live with that as if it's a diagnosis. I had friends who had that at the time, but I was digging a little bit deeper and I found this idea of gut dysbiosis. And I want to kind of explain what it means. Gut dysbiosis is essentially an imbalance of microbes in the gut. It is known to cause diarrhea, constipation, food sensitivities, food intolerances, allergies, like a host of other like gut related symptoms. People would typically categorize that as like bloating, stomach pain, that type of thing. And I had probably all of those, if I'm honest, and was also very intolerant to dairy. So I couldn't take anything that had even a speck of dairy in it. I actually tried taking a probiotic at one point, had some dairy in it. It was a dairy-based probiotic, and I reacted so badly to it for months, and I just had no idea what it was. Anyway, I took it out. I was very sensitive. What I realized, though, after some time of kind of digging into like how to heal your body naturally, was that the root issue for all of these symptoms was the same, and it really was this gut dysbiosis, is this imbalance of the gut. And the good news was that it was treatable. It was something that I've now heard testimony after testimony of people actually resolving, and that actually leading to more health benefit in other areas of their body. So I was totally into it at this point, and I decided to go on the GAPS diet. But I want to kind of go through like the 3 things that I feel like made the biggest difference, and why I think they made the biggest difference. Because if you're out there and you are in the beginning stages of healing your gut, or you just realize that, you know, this is possible, it's possible to actually resolve your chronic health issues through healing your gut, I want to kind of give you these as like a base. And they're also like fermented foods that I keep in my diet on a regular basis. I have these foods all the time, and I kind of live by them as a form of like wellness prevention, or disease prevention, but a form of like wellness in my life. So the first one is raw milk kefir, and you hear me rave about this all the time. I actually have a video on exactly how to make it if you're interested in getting started, but raw milk kefir is basically raw milk with these little kefir grains, which are like kind of like sour jelly, cauliflower looking things. And you put them in the milk and leave them for 24 hours, and they will actually eat up the lactose in the milk and release probiotics, release the beneficial yeasts and microbes that can help repopulate your gut. So kefir is like the king of the ferments. It's got like over 70 different beneficial bacterial strains. And this is something that, honestly, if you're sensitive to anything, this is something to kind of add into your diet slowly, because it's powerful. But kefir really can help to bring balance to pathogenic yeast overgrowth, because you're just inundating your body with the beneficial strains. And it also helps you to process sugar better. And if it's lactose free, if it's been fermented long enough, then you're not going to have any of that sensitivity that you may have to lactose if you're in the beginning stages of healing. So that's why kefir is like my favorite. Every time I'm like super consistent about it, I feel so good. My second one is kombucha, and for the reasons I just mentioned, it's like honestly one of the best like probiotic drinks out there. It tastes so good. You can mix it with all sorts of different juices and make it homemade for pennies. It really is, again, like another way to get a different variety of beneficial strains of bacteria. Kombucha scobies, like pancake looking thing that you make kombucha out of, are known to release like tons of different probiotics, but also like B vitamins. So kombucha is actually really high in B vitamins, which are needed for detoxification, which, if you know anything about like my channel, I talk a lot about detox because I think it's so important to gut health. And I think it's something that most of us lack. So, and then my third one is fermented brines, and that could be pickle brine, sauerkraut brine, vegetable medley brine, like we talk about on GAPS. It could be beet kvass, which is great for liver detox. Recently, what I've been doing is I've been actually making jars of them, tons of jars of them, and then combining them all into one big jug that I have in my fridge. And so I can take like drops or doses of that as I can tolerate it. And I'm getting the strains from all these different fermented brines all in one every single day. So I'll mix that with some lemon water. I'll mix it with my morning mineral water. And so it's like one big mineral fermented brine mocktail, cocktail, whatever you want to call it. But fermented brines are key because they not only replenish your body of the beneficial microbes, but it also actually chelates heavy metals in the bloodstream. So because it's in liquid form, it's going to be passing through that intestinal wall and absorbing into the rest of your body. You're going to get an amazing detox in addition to replenishing your body. Not just your gut, but also your whole body with beneficial microbes. Believe it or not, all of these three things can actually be used topically if you have any sort of rash or irritation to the skin, because your skin also has a microbiome, and that's something that I've done in the past as well. These three honestly were like my biggest things when it comes down to healing my gut. It really is probiotics, probiotics, probiotics. I recently did a video on probiotics that I will have linked in the description box below if you're interested. I talk about the best probiotics and the difference between store-bought probiotics and fermented foods, what I think is best and when. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in getting started. And I also have a quick guide to gut health, which goes through 10 of my best tips for healing your gut if you're interested in long-term healing, because that's what we're all about here. And when it comes to healing your gut, I really want to focus on like long-term healing. Looking at the gut is really looking at the entire body, and that's something that Western medicine doesn't always take into account. So if you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It's my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching.